looking at each other.
Yeah.
That really was what everybody really wanted to see, which, by the way, the movie needed to look good because you waited like 45, 50 minutes of Lance Henriksen coughing up a lung for I'm serious. And that's the buildup. So again, going back to why the sets needed to look good, and they did. And I think like the build up to it, which I guess now you can appreciate more. But whenever you go into the theater or whenever you watch it for the first time, you think AVP, like you want to see it. You know what I mean? You want to see but it didn't happen for a little bit, which but anyway, go ahead.
So he kills Chopper, right? And then he gets into that massive fight where it's a WWE brawl where he spins the thing around by its tail. He chops the tail off. The thing spits acid at him. I mean, they knock pillars over. And eventually, Celtic gets Grid with like that kind of wire mesh that wraps him up. But then its acid blood melts it. And then Grid is able to kill Celtic. So what I'm saying is this xenomorph, right? All right, so if you think about the original Alien, it killed the crew of the Nostromo, but they didn't know what they were up against. Then in Aliens, you had all the xenomorphs and the Queen Alien, right? But the Queen Alien ended up dying, lost to that loader. Totally fine, a classic scene. Alien 3, you have that cool dog alien, but it's still fighting humans. Alien Resurrection, you have that cuddly alien that gets all his guts sucked out through a window, which is really weird. But I think of all the xenomorphs, even I'm thinking Covenant, I'm thinking Prometheus, of the xenomorphs, not like the engineers. This is the baddest of all of them because it's not just killing humans or it doesn't have numbers. It takes out 2 predators in straight combat. Like, is there another xenomorph that's that badass?
Actually, no. It's what I think you said wasn't all that controversial whenever you explain it like that. I mean, it's profound when you think about it.
I want to be angry, but I can't.
No, I mean, it does do all that stuff. And like, wasn't there only a total of 3 predators? Well, during like the actual in the pyramid. I mean, there obviously there was a lot more in there, and they made it. It was interesting because they made them. It's like humans in a jungle. Like the humans are smarter, but the tiger, if they go one-on-one, will end up beating without some sort of technology or whatnot. So the aliens are just vastly superior. However, in the movie, you're right. That dude takes out 2. And it's fairly soon, by the way, when it actually goes to the actual AVP of the story, which is what everyone wanted to freaking see. And it finally happens. It's like, damn, we're down to 1.
And it kind of annoys me, though, that Grid doesn't get enough respect.
Grid.
That's his name.
Well, I mean, I know. The clever name, yeah. It does make a lot, yeah. I mean, he should get a lot more respect. And I think, by the way, how does Grid die, by the way?
Oh, so he kind of goes down like a chump. That's
right, I remember.
He's chasing Lex and Scar up that. There's a 2-mile tunnel, dude. A tunnel.
Yeah.
But he's chasing him up, and he or she can't get up the snow or the hole fast enough, and it gets smushed.
It's perfectly aligned too when you watch that scene. Like it's a perfectly done story. I mean, just that's the pieces that you kind of miss a little bit when you watch it again. There were those little inconsistencies that the movie and the director made that I thought were that you don't appreciate till afterwards. You really don't appreciate this movie going back again. You really don't appreciate the movie back in 2003, 4 or whatever as much as you would now. Because there's some crap out there today with far more of a budget. It's like, yeah, that's fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fake, and that's fake. And I think maybe, I mean, you're into this stuff, Mark. I mean, is it more expensive now to actually do the real thing versus a CGI type of thing? If it's like, I understand there's versions of CGI that cost more than others, right? I mean, you can put in a lot of money for the stuff, but is it more expensive to actually have more real things in a movie outside versus CGI?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
Because when they were shooting, a funny story, when they were doing Event Horizon in the 90s, the opening shot of of a satellite took them 1 year to do, which means they had entire teams of people working on it for a year. So CGI was so much more expensive. But nowadays, with all this previs and James Cameron working on everything and Weta and ILM, they can really capture these things quickly. Now, these shots are expensive. They've come along, like they're not as expensive in The Mummy per se. So back in the day, The Mummy, like each frame was incredibly expensive. Now they can knock it out. But where the cheapness comes in, so like on Captain America Civil War, at the end of it, when all the Avengers fight, they're supposedly at a massive airport. If you actually shot an airport like that, You need to rent every plane every day. You need to rent all the cars. You need to have a crew. You need to clear everything out. You need more PAs. But if you shoot it on the backwood at Pinewood in Atlanta, you just have the blue screen, green screen up, and then you only need 3-4 cars. So when there's a scene where all those cars drop from when Hawkeye shoots that thing and it lands on Iron Man, we drop 2 cars. And then that became all those cars. So nowadays it's cheaper to do that because you're not paying for the rent, you're not paying for the rentals, you're not paying for the crew every day, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot less money to spend. You're not renting the place each day. So for some shoots, I would say CGI is the way to go now.
And that, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, is a professional commentary because there's no way in hell I ever would have thought of that. Ever. Yeah. Like, there's just no way. That's really cool, actually. But going back to AVP, yeah. I'm just kidding.
But I got to tell you, man, there's something, you're right. So a lot of these sets nowadays, they combine practical with CGI. And I was on like 150 plus sets, man. Like I worked on a ton of sets. And sometimes though, when you're able to walk through that real thing, there's nothing like it. Like there's just nothing like it.
Doesn't it help the actors though? You could I think the biggest story, like where it changed the most, and of course, like, and I respect both sides of it, but like the original Star Wars versus the newer ones with that green screen.
Yeah.
I mean, Ewan McGregor's a hell of an actor, and I think it's just tougher to act in a green screen environment, right? I mean, if you have a greasy looking alien looking at you with those teeth and stuff, I mean, how much acting do you really need to have to kind of get yourself worked up versus, and you can just kind of tell. I mean, I watched, what was I watching yesterday? 2012 with John Cusack flying around that little airplane or whatever. And he's like dodging, like there's like billions of people dying all at once. Yeah. He's kind of smiling and looking around. Like even my kid is like, boy, he thought it was a game. But like, if you think about it, there's like 1.5 million people dying a second. I mean, that's not that fun, but Cusack thought it was. And it was literally like burning my eyes out. It was just like, but it was like a Bad Boys 10 or you went from Bad Boys 1 to Bad Boys 2. Like this, it just went totally out of whack, crazy. And that's where I think that's where a lot of my appreciation for AVP comes in even more. And again, I'm not saying it's a classic. I'm saying for us, it's like those movies you watch with your friends. That's just kind of, memorable, and it brings you back. And it's like a song. Mm-hmm. You think of a song or a food or whatever for the holidays. AVP is our holiday and our food. And again, I never would have thought in 2003, 4-ish that we'd be on a podcast for a 2020 talking about AVP. It's just amazing. But when you go back to it, you really do appreciate the work and effort they put in.
Oh yeah.
And it's just different because you're not really getting that. A lot of folks try to do it, I guess. They don't necessarily have the big budgets for it to do it. And like you said, I mean, you made the point. It's actually less expensive to do a little cheaper CGI to create the story versus doing something over the top like AVP, which really was. I mean, there's a lot of models there, and it took a lot of time to build those out. I would imagine that's probably where most of the cost went, to be honest, with the sets and the models and stuff for the aliens and the Predator, because they look good, dude. I went back and watched it. I'm like, this looks pretty good to me visually.
You know what's really tough is they were joking around about this on set, where like a lot of Tom Woodruff and the director and the actors. So a lot of the actors were kind of like, yeah, we're on set, we're ready. But every time you redo an alien, like, so you know how much goop were in those aliens' mouths. So every time that they needed a shot, they would put a bunch of goo in the alien, shoot it out, but then the alien kept dripping goo, so they had to wait 5 minutes, and then they had to put more stuff in. So the shooting schedule got longer, the days got longer, which means more money spent, because they had to, like, these guys on set, it's their job to make these creatures look perfect, and I think they did a really good job of that. I mean, the Predators are kind of beefy in this movie, though. They're like thick. But it was their job to make sure they looked excellent, and that's what kind of where a lot of the time was spent, was making them look good. So it's kind of interesting, right? Where, I don't know, I just like that process. It seems like it would have been slow, but it's pretty neat.
Well, again, you just appreciate it more today because you have a frame of reference over the past, however many years, since, 16 years, there's a huge frame of reference to what's coming out now. And by the way, that's not to dig on other stuff or whatever. I mean, everyone, we'll look back, 10 plus years at the movies that are coming out now with a different, frame of reference whenever you watch a movie and stuff like that. I think that's what they're there for, to be honest, or whatnot. And, again, you don't want to, it's just one of those movies that is still out there. People know about it, but it's not really it's kind of aged good, right?
Yeah.
It's just one of those. It's just one of those movies.
I mean, watch Indiana Jones, watch Back to the Future, watch Jurassic Park. I mean, there's a reason why Mad Max movies. I mean, look at those films. There's a reason why they age well. It's because, a lot of them were really well made. But I do think a lot of directors had big sets and their movies were still crap. So I think it's just the people who put the work into it.
Hey, here's some, I was going to say Waterworld, but I held my tongue because I'll tell you flat out, I liked Waterworld. I don't care what anybody says. I liked Waterworld. I don't know how the hell I'm even talking about Waterworld right now, but you're talking about real life sets.
Man. They used so much steel. Hawaii ran out of steel because they built that entire atoll.
That is amazing.
And they dragged it out to sea. Like it was nuts.
That is a movie that actually has grown better with time as well.
Well, yeah, except for the jet ski stuff.
That was pretty bad. Yeah. Yeah, that was but if you watch that, like you want to go AVP times 10, watch Waterworld. Like that exemplifies the good parts about AVP. I guess, the fight scenes are pretty decent too, by the way. There was some kind of cheesy stuff with that girl running with the freaking alien. They're all of a sudden friends. It'd be kind of cool if the alien just killed her. It's like,
no, man, Lex is great. Sanaa Lathan's awesome, man. What are you talking about? And I like that tradition of kind of having that. And I don't know. I dug her presence in there. I like Lex.
No. I thought they did a good job of versus the other stuff they put out. Was the last God, I didn't care about anybody. What was the last Predator they did?
Oh, yeah. It was The Predator. That was a belly flop. I think the biggest problem with this movie, though, is... All right, so I'm going to name some... can you name any of the characters? So I just said Lex, and you already know Bishop. Can you name any of the characters?
I just referenced them out to other movies, like the guy in Gladiator.
Yeah, exactly. Train Spotting.
Yeah, and he had a really cool voice before he died. Get out of here! How he talks, but he died. But that's a problem. And I thought dialogue was also an issue too. It's just like I said, they were trying. It wasn't like it was overtly, even though there are lines like you said twice. Harkening back to the old school. But I would say definitely that. I mean, that's kind of to answer your question. No.
Exactly. Like you have Sebastian DeRosa. You have Graham Miller, Maxwell Stafford, Mark Verheiden, Joe Connors, Adele Rousseau, Rustin Quinn, Thomas Parks. You don't know, none of these guys. All right, so I like Ewan Bremer because he's always like, yeah, I got kids, so he's dead. But I do like that when everything hit the fan, he was telling the Merc, we're gonna survive. And then I do like the scene where he's all gooped up with the alien goo, and he manages to get Gladiator's gun, and he shoots the face hugger before it gets on his face, and then the rest of the face huggers open up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he had a little bit of character development because he was on his phone, he was doing some stuff with his family or something like that, and
yeah.
But it's just like you felt pretty good. So, this guy's gonna make it. Which you kind of asked the question, why has he made it out so far? There's all of them flying around, but they just decided not to go for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that made a lot of sense, but either way, he got his. But you're right. I don't recall anybody, but if you look at those movies, I'm trying to think of, Alien Covenant, and then one of the engineers, Mark. What was the first one? Alien
Prometheus.
Prometheus.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hate and love for those movies. I thought, I wasn't a big Alien fan when they first came out. I mean, I watched them recently. Actually, I saw them on TV and stuff. I really watched them just 2 years ago. And I'm like, damn, this is really good.
They look great.
And then there's the third one. I wasn't whatever, but I thought they just took themselves too seriously, and I didn't get that. I didn't think it's this philosophical type of thing with him, on the second one, which I don't know why they made. It was with really bad with names.
Danny McBride's in it, and then there's some other people.
Fassbender. There's just some people in there or whatever. There's extras. I mean, the guy Eastbound and Down, that dude or whatever was in that second one. But I mean, they took it too seriously. I did not get that vibe from AVP. It was here's what it is. Here's what we're going to do. The director had a plan. They're going to do it. And they made some money. And, they made some sequels from it. If it completely and totally flopped, I mean, this last, the Predator, I don't know if they'll be making a Predator anytime soon.
No.
I mean, I saw that. And it was it's they went the exact opposite of not only are we not going to take ourselves seriously, we're going to make fun of ourselves at the same time times 50.
It's really funny you say that. I was listening to an interview from Martin Sheen. He joined David Tennant's podcast. And in that in the podcast